Tonight in Florida, the state is scheduled to carry out another execution at Florida State Prison near Starr. The man scheduled to die is Dusty Ray Spencer. He's 74 years old, death row inmate, convicted in 1992 for the murder of his wife, Karen Spencer. Now, this video is not about celebrating his death. It's not about politics, and it's not about turning someone's tragedy into entertainment. This channel is not about that. This channel is about corrections, prison life, officer awareness, and the parts of the justice system most people never see. So tonight, I want to talk about this execution from a corrections perspective. What does it mean? What the public often misses, and why nights like this weighs heavy on more people than most realize. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Terry Randall here, Beyond the Badge, Inside the Bars. And here we talk about corrections, prison culture, officer survival, inmate behavior, death row, and the real world behind the walls. If you work in corrections, you already know prisons is not just about cells, gates, uniform, count time. It's about human beings, trauma, victim, bad decision, legal consequences, and staff member who has to carry orders professionally no matter how heavy the moment is. Tonight's execution is one of these moments. Dusty Ray Spencer was sentenced to death for the murder of his wife, Karen Spencer. This case goes back more than 3 decades. According to court records and reportings, there was a history of violence before the killing. And the final crime left the family forever changed. This is where the conversation has to begin. Before we talk about the inmate, before we talk about the death row, before we talk about the execution process, we have to remember the victim. Karen Spencer lost her life. Her family lost someone they loved. No legal debate, no appeal, no prison sentence, and no execution can be undone for that loss. In corrections, we can never forget the victim side of the story. But this channel also looks at what happens after the courtroom. Once the judge speaks, once the sentence is handed, and the responsibility shifts to the correctional professional, to the correctional system. That means officers, nurses, chaplains, classification staff, supervisors, wardens, transport teams, control room officers, security staff, and many others all become part of carrying out the lawful sentence. The public may see a headline that says Florida executes tonight. But behind that headline is a facility that has to be locked down, secured, staffed, organized, documented, and controlled. There's also checklists, there's all procedures, there are security concerns, there are witnesses, there are media protocols, there are last visits. There is a spiritual care, there is a victim's family member, there are legal updates that can come down to the last minute. And through all that, correctional officers are expected to remain calm, professional, and precise. That is something the public rarely understands. People often ask, how can someone work around death row? Now, the truth is, officers do not get the luxury of only working around easy situations. Correctional officers work around violence, mental illness, manipulation, grief, anger, regret, and sometimes death. An execution night is not just another shift. There's a lot of preparation that goes into it. Even for officers who support the death penalty, the weight of the moment is real. Even for officers who do not support it, the job still requires professionalism. That is one of the hardest parts of corrections. You may have personal feelings, religious feelings, moral feelings, and emotional reactions, but when you put on that uniform, the job requires control. You cannot make the moment about yourself. You cannot lose discipline. You cannot let emotions override procedure. You have to do your job. Now, death row is different from general population. There's a lot of different things that goes on during the death row process. The custody level is different. The supervision is different. The mental pressure is different. The inmates knows what they're facing. The staff knows what those inmates are facing. Some inmates spend decades on death row. Staff may see them age. They may see them get sick. They may see them change. They may also do the crime that put them behind the bars. That creates a hard reality. In corrections, you're not there to be judged. You're not there to retry the case. You're not there to be friends with the inmate. You're not there to hate the inmate either. You are there to maintain safety, security, order, and professionalism of the compound. This is where the line of officers have to walk every day. When executions make the news, the inmate's name is usually the headline. But I want to say the victim's name too, Karen Spencer. Because in every murder case, the victim can get lost in the legal process. Years pass, appeals happen, news stories focus on the inmate's age, health, final meals, last words, and execution time. But the victim never get those extra years. The family have to live with an empty seat at the table. So when we talk about this case, we should do it with respect. Respect for the victim, respect for the family, respect for the process, and yes, even respect for the seriousness of taking a life under color of law. Now, new correctional officers watching this, here's the lesson. The lesson is your job will put you close to things most people only read about. You may work around inmates who committed terrible crimes. You may work around victims' families. You may work around death, grief, anger, and regret. Your professionalism matters. The way you talk matters. The way you carry yourself matters. The way you follow procedure matters. On a night like this, there is no room for jokes, no room for ego, no room for social media clout, and no room for careless talks. You represent the agent, the professionalism in the justice system. Now, for me personally, nights like this reminds me how serious life is. One act of violence can destroy a family. One decision can change generations. One crime can lead to decades of consequences. And for those of us who believes in God, it also a reminder that justice, mercy, accountability, and redemptions are heavy subjects. We should not treat any of this lightly. The Bible says there is a time for everything, a time to mourn, a time to reflect, a time to examine ourselves. Tonight is a time to reflect. So, as Florida prepares to carry out this execution, remember this is bigger than a headline. There's a victim, and we need to remember this victim. There's a family, and the family needs to remember. There's also the inmate that's involved. There are officers and staff inside the institution doing a job most people would never understand. And there's a system carrying out one of the most serious punishment a government can impose. Whether you agree or disagree with the death penalty, we should all be able to agree on this. Violence leaves scars. Choices have consequences. And the people working behind the walls carries burden the public rarely sees. This is Kerry Randall with Beyond the Badge, Inside the Bars, telling you to stay safe, stay professional, and watch your six. And remember, behind every wall, there is a story the public never sees. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this channel, and let's grow and learn more about corrections.